By his third week in Oak Ridge Estates, Mark had received 2 written warnings slipped under his door for leaving his garage door open past 7 p.m. and for having an unapproved doormat, and witnessed Patricia reduce his next-door neighbor to tears over non-regulation mailbox numbers. On Wednesday evening, Mark was bringing in his trash cans exactly 19 minutes after collection. The HOA mandated limit was 20 minutes, when his elderly neighbor Frank beckoned him over furtively. "Come over for a beer sometime," Frank whispered, eyes darting up and down the street. "Got something to show you." Intrigued, Mark took Frank up on his offer the following night. What he discovered in Frank's immaculate garage left him speechless: a pristine 1965 Triumph Bonneville and a 1972 Norton Commando, both in museum-quality condition. "You're a motorcycle guy too?" Mark exclaimed. Frank grinned, popping open 2 beers. "Going on 50 years now. There's more of us in Oak Ridge than you'd think. We just keep it quiet." Over the next few days, Mark was secretly introduced to Oak Ridge's underground motorcycle enthusiasts, a group of 7 homeowners who kept their passion hidden from Patricia's watchful eye. They restored and maintained their bikes in secret, never riding them within neighborhood boundaries and storing them in garages with windows carefully covered. "This is insane," Mark said during their clandestine gathering in Frank's garage. "It's not illegal to own motorcycles. The HOA covenant only mentions excessive noise and visible disrepair." "Doesn't matter," said Helen, a 62-year-old retired librarian with 3 vintage Harleys hidden under quilts in her basement. "Patricia interprets the rules however she wants. Anyone who challenges her finds themselves with violations for things nobody knew were violations." Mark couldn't accept this. "What if we just did it anyway? Together? She can't find all of us." The group exchanged nervous glances before Dave, a normally quiet accountant, leaned forward. "You know what? I'm tired of hiding. Let's do it." That Saturday, Mark hosted what they called the Great Driveway Rebellion. 6 vintage motorcycles lined his driveway as their owners gathered to admire each other's restorations and share maintenance tips. The gathering was purposely wholesome. No alcohol, no loud music, just passionate enthusiasts talking carburetors and paint jobs. They were just starting to relax when Patricia's unmistakable figure appeared at the end of the driveway, face flushed with fury as she furiously punched numbers into her phone. "This is Patricia Wilkinson at 847 Oak Ridge Lane," she practically shouted into her phone. "I need police here immediately. There's a gang gathering with illegal activities in progress." Mark Davidson wiped sweat from his brow as he carefully polished the chrome exhaust pipes of his prized 1978 Honda CB 750. After 6 years of cramped apartment living, where his vintage motorcycles gathered dust in expensive storage units, the sun warming his back as he worked in his very own driveway felt like pure freedom. That freedom lasted exactly 47 minutes. "Excuse me. Excuse me." The shrill voice cut through the peaceful Saturday morning like a chainsaw. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Mark looked up to find a woman in her late 50s with an immaculate blonde bob and pressed khaki capris marching toward him. She clutched a leather binder to her chest like a shield, her French manicured finger already wagging in disapproval. "Just some basic maintenance," Mark replied, standing to extend a hand. "I'm Mark. Just moved in Tuesday." The woman ignored his outstretched hand, instead flipping open her binder with practiced efficiency. "Patricia Wilkinson, HOA president. And this," she gestured dramatically at his motorcycle, "is a clear violation of Section 7.3 of our covenant." Mark's smile faltered. "I read through most of the welcome packet, but clearly not thoroughly enough." Patricia thrust a highlighted page toward him. "No vehicle maintenance in driveways. Period. It reduces property values and creates an unsightly appearance." Mark glanced around at his meticulously organized tools and the pristine condition of both his driveway and motorcycle. "I'm being pretty careful here, not making any mess or noise." Patricia's lips tightened into a bloodless line. "Rules are rules, Mr. Davidson. Consider this your first and only verbal warning." She snapped her binder shut with finality. We maintain standards in Oak Ridge Estates. This isn't some biker commune. As she power walked away, Mark noticed 3 neighbors quickly retreating into their homes, avoiding eye contact completely. One man actually abandoned his half-finished lawn mowing, leaving the machine in the middle of his yard. Mark's phone buzzed with a text from his real estate agent. Forgot to mention, watch out for Patricia. They call her the HOA dragon. Should have warned you. Sorry. Too late now, Mark thought, looking at his beautiful motorcycle gleaming in the sun. He'd escaped his cramped apartment only to land in a different kind of prison. He reluctantly wheeled the Honda back into his garage, the door closing with a defeated thud that echoed his mood. His dream home was starting to feel like a mistake. The open-concept kitchen and spacious backyard suddenly seemed less appealing when they came with a side of militant rule enforcement. The following morning, Mark was awakened at precisely 7:18 a.m. by 3 sharp knocks on his front door. Still in his pajama bottoms and a faded Iron Maiden t-shirt, he stumbled to answer it, expecting a package delivery or perhaps an overly friendly neighbor. Instead, Patricia Wilkinson stood on his welcome mat, which he would later learn violated the approved entryway decor section of the covenant due to its excessive color vibrancy. In her hands was not the dreaded binder, but a wicker basket covered with a checkered cloth. "Good morning, Mr. Davidson," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I thought I'd bring over some of my famous banana bread to properly welcome you to Oak Ridge Estates." Confused by this apparent peace offering, Mark accepted the basket. "That's very kind of you. We pride ourselves on being a friendly community," Patricia continued, peering past him into his living room, where several motorcycle helmets were visible on the whole table. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I've also included our complete covenant guidebook. The one you received at closing is unfortunately outdated by 3 amendments." Mark lifted the cloth to find, beneath a single small loaf of banana bread, a 3-inch thick binder with color-coded tabs, and a spreadsheet of violation fines. "I've highlighted the sections most new residents tend to overlook," Patricia added, including Section 12.4 regarding approved window treatments. "I couldn't help but notice you haven't installed the regulation blinds yet. You have 14 days from move-in to comply." Mark hadn't even unpacked his kitchen yet. "I'll get right on that," he said, trying to keep the sarcasm from his voice. Patricia beamed with approval that still somehow conveyed disapproval. "Excellent. Oh, and your garbage can was 6 inches too close to your mailbox yesterday. The required distance is clearly outlined on page 42, subsection F." As she turned to leave, she added, "You might want to remove that motorcycle-themed welcome mat. Decorative entryway items must be neutral in both color and subject matter. Enjoy the banana bread." The bread, Mark discovered later, was oddly dry yet simultaneously gummy, with an aftertaste reminiscent of artificial sweetener and disappointment. By the end of his first week, Mark had compiled a mental list of his apparent violations: incorrectly positioned garden hose, unapproved porch light wattage, excessive morning coffee consumption on his front steps, not explicitly banned, but frowned upon, and, most egregiously, failing to retrieve his mail before 5 p.m., leaving it unsightly in the box overnight. Each infraction came with a personal visit from Patricia, whose friendly demeanor grew increasingly strained as Mark's compliance failed to meet her standards. On Friday evening, while Mark was grilling a steak in his backyard, with city-approved propane, at the covenant-designated distance from his fence, the neighbor to his left cautiously approached the property line. "Hey there," the man said in a near whisper, glancing over his shoulder. "I'm Jim. Listen, we're all not like her." He nervously adjusted his glasses. "Some of us are actually normal human beings." Before Mark could respond, Jim quickly added, "Just don't tell her I said that," and retreated to his yard, where he immediately began measuring the height of his grass with a ruler. Later that night, Mark sat on his back porch with a beer, scrolling through real estate listings on his phone and calculating how much he would use if he sold the house now. The financial hit would be substantial, but was it worth escaping Patricia's reign of terror? As he contemplated his options, a notification appeared on his phone, an email from the HOA with the subject line, Violahion, unapproved outdoor seating, Section 9.2. Apparently, his porch chair was the wrong shade of brown. Mark closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Somehow, he knew this was just the beginning. Patricia's public humiliation spread through Oak Ridge Estates faster than a neighborhood Facebook group discussing suspicious activity. By Monday morning, an emergency HOA board meeting had been called. Mark was surprised to receive an invitation from board member Susan Chen, who had quietly observed the Saturday incident from her living room window. "We need new voices," her text read, "especially yours." The community clubhouse buzzed with an energy it hadn't seen in years. Nearly every homeowner attended. People who had previously avoided HOA meetings like tax audits now eagerly claimed seats. Patricia sat alone in the front row, her legendary binder clutched to her chest like armor. Board Vice President Thomas Abernathy called the meeting to order. "In light of recent events, we're reviewing both our covenant enforcement procedures and leadership structure." What followed was 3 hours of pent-up grievances as resident after resident recounted tales of Patricia's reign of terror, the woman fined for planting unauthorized perennials, the family threatened with legal action over their child's basketball hoop, the elderly man who received weekly violations for grass being a quarter-inch too high during his hospital stay. The most stunning revelation came when 3 board members, including Thomas himself, admitted to being secret motorcycle enthusiasts who had voted for Patricia's harsh policies out of fear of becoming her next targets. "I literally keep my Ducati at my brother's house in the next county," Thomas confessed. "I've been riding there to pick it up every weekend for 4 years." By meeting's end, Patricia had been removed as president by unanimous vote. The board appointed a committee to rewrite the covenant with clearer, more reasonable guidelines. Mark was asked to chair it. As people filed out, Officer Rebecca Johnson appeared at the door, off-duty and accompanied by a tall, silver-haired man. "Hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "My dad heard about your motorcycle drama and insisted on meeting you all." She grinned. "He's also brought membership applications for the Restoration Club." 2 weeks later, First Saturday became Oak Ridge Estates' official monthly tradition, a neighborhood-wide driveway showcase where residents displayed not just motorcycles, but classic cars, woodworking projects, art collections, and other passions they kept hidden during Patricia's era. The once sterile neighborhood transformed. Gardens became more eclectic, house colors more varied, and spontaneous conversations between neighbors more common. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that Patricia's attempt to maintain property values had actually increased them. Real estate agents now highlighted Oak Ridge's vibrant community atmosphere in listings. Patricia still lived there, though she'd put her house up for sale 3 times without success. Occasionally, she was spotted watching the gatherings from behind her curtains, her expression unreadable. Mark found himself at the center of this community renaissance, hosting restoration workshops in his garage with Rebecca's father as a frequent guest instructor. His driveway, the original crime scene, became a symbol of the neighborhood's transformation. "You know what's funny?" Mark said to Rebecca one evening as they watched the sun set from his front porch swing. "If Patricia hadn't called 911 that day, none of this would have happened." Rebecca laughed, her hand finding his. "I guess sometimes it takes one call to find another kind of calling." In the distance, Patricia's 4 SAA sign swayed in the evening breeze, now faded after months in the sun.